Welcome to Influence to Death, your guide for navigating the wild world of wellness influencing. Hi, and welcome to Influence to Death. I'm Victoria Lafont, MS.
I'm Hannah Wright, MS.
We did it. We're educated. And so this is part 2 of our episode on the medical medium. I have taken a break, had some water, gone on a walk. My blood pressure has come back down.
The deep breathing exercises.
Yeah, after part 1. I mean, it is interesting for me to see how strong my bias is against this person and their information because of it is because of that Stephanie Tizone story and to like hear the personal accounts of people that have been negatively affected. God, just paired with, I guess, amazement that people believe the batshit crazy things that come out of this person's mouth. But it's like something that I'm trying to be aware of because I'm like, when a bias is that strong, I'm probably missing something, like just trying to be aware of that.
That's a really wonderful way to approach it. And it's true, I do too. Like, I am very upfront that I'm biased against a medical medium. I think he's a con artist. I think he's a con.
We're leaving all this in. That's amazing. Hannah, the spirit of compassion is after you. That's what's happening. Is. Hopefully you can talk after this.
I've lost my voice. I think he's a con artist and a grifter. And I've said that multiple times. That's why he blocked me many years ago. And I think he preys on vulnerable people, and he's very aware of that vulnerable population and the lengths that they will go to heal themselves. And I mean, what was the stat you said about the wellness searches?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this also might be helpful. Like, do people kind of know what we do? Have we ever even talked about that on the podcast? Part of what we do, I know you have a lot of projects outside of this, but so my main work, and we work together in this, is that our goal is to work through a marketing agency, the Lafont Agency, to improve medicine. That's the whole mission of the agency, is basically to create marketing that is scientifically accurate and practical. I don't think we've ever said that.
Yeah, that's useful.
Yeah, I mean,
and I guess
that is like that's my job. And that's part of what kind of led to this podcast, is like, when you look out there at all of the information that is associated with wellness, this crazy huge industry, a lot of it is schlock. It's total just game of telephone. The problem, though, is you're in an industry where that schlock has the potential to hurt people. So yeah, the mission of the agency is to change that and to essentially megaphone information that is really helpful and good, which is part of the reason it's that we are so bias conscious, is because we don't want to be the assholes either.
Right.
Spread shitty information. But so the way that we do that is through optimization, through SEO. And yeah, the stat that we were talking about before we started to record is that there are 270,000, and that's dated. So over, let's say, probably close to 300,000 or more wellness-related searches every minute on Google. So, okay, hang on.
That is wild.
I'm going to get
so much.
I'm wading into water that is way outside of my wheelhouse, which is anything having to do with math. But if there's how many minutes, 60 minutes in an hour, I'm just going to say 300,000. That's 18 million wellness-related searches every minute on Google. Oh, no. I'm sorry. Every hour.
Every hour.
On Google. I told you the math. Yeah. 18 million an hour. So all of those people, I think you put it really eloquently.
Oh, thanks. What did I say?
Basically, it's like all those people are going online and they're searching for, they have questions about their health, or they have problems they're trying to solve. And when you have someone like Medical Medium, who has this enormous platform, right? 4.8 million followers on Instagram. Honestly, I haven't even checked how many followers he has on X or on Facebook, because I'm going to try and keep my lunch down. but this enormous website, it's a very strong website. My guess is that at least some of those 18 million searches per hour land people on his site.
And his site is, sorry, go ahead.
We had this discussion a little bit with Mercola, right? Like how
Mhm.
much traffic his site attracted every day, was like insane. It was like close to like the National Institutes for Health. So it's like, yeah, these people are definitely finding medical medium. Of course he wants his persona to be sterling. It's how
Mhm.
he makes money, and he's drawing off of this enormous funnel. Um,
Right.
and it's something we actually know a lot about because that's what we work in.
Yeah. And his funnel is huge because he claims that he can help you heal this vast array of disease. It's not like most
Mm-hmm.
practitioners where they have a specialty. And
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty standard because it takes a lot of clinical experience and
Mm-hmm.
study and
Mm-hmm.
practice to become an expert in any arena of health. So that's why you see people specialize in the digestive system or female hormones or, whatever, like exercise
Mm-hmm.
science, fertility, because it's complex, and
Yes.
he is addressing all of those things. He's like, you got cancer, you got infertility, you have hypothyroid, you have,
Mm-hmm.
chronic disease, you have like all these things. He's like, I can help you do that. So
Right.
those 18 million people an hour, it's like statistically, a lot of them, he's giving maybe all of them solutions. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
solutions aren't
That's in
real,
quotes.
but
Yeah.
like, it's
I think it's also important to point out that's why, I mean, your expertise is in GI, in digestive
mhm,
issues. But I'm always like, I'm not really an expert in anything because I'm a writer. Like I'm looking at all of these different topics.
right,
I never picked a specialty when I was practicing. It wasn't interesting to me because I didn't realize I'm actually like a research nerd at heart and I just wanted to research everything. But it's like why I say that is because I'm like, it does take so many years to learn that body of research for that particular issue or
mhm,
topic that you've chosen. It's you'd have to this is the thing, you'd have to be a freaking medium or psychic to have those answers. There's no
right,
other way to get it. And if you're like a genius with some type of like photographic memory, which yeah, that
yeah,
exists, but it's super rare. It's like, yeah, it does come back to like, man, this guy is a grifter. It
right,
really seems that way.
right.
Um,
And I will say to add to what you said, like I like gut health and GI stuff is like one of my passions, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert. Like I know a lot about the microbiome and, like gut health science. I follow it, I read the research. But if someone had like a severe gut infection or
sure.
severe, bacterial overgrowth that required like strong interventions, like that's not, I'm not,
Hmm.
not going to pretend to be like, oh, I'll help you heal. I know how to do it because I probably need to refer them to someone who only
Hmm.
works with that population of people and is very skilled. You know what I mean? And I think that's common for like many practitioners. And I think that's a hallmark of someone
Yes.
with integrity and who is humble and can say, actually, I don't know the answer to this and I need
Hmm.
help and I need someone else to help us figure this out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
he does
I'm
not do
glad
that. He does the
we're talking
opposite.
about this because, and it actually, we talked about this kind of before we started to record. It's like some people don't know that he does not have training. It doesn't always happen that when you get trained, you get your ass humbled out. But I think that was
Mhm.
our experience is when we went through school, we were like, oh shit. Like, hang on a second. I'm like, honestly say, when I got done with grad school, I was like, I just thought I knew something about A and
Mhm.
P or nutrition before I started. And now I'm positive I know less than what I would like to know. It's like that level of, and it comes Dunning-Kruger, the Dunning-Kruger
Mhm.
effect is like comes into this conversation. The level of audacity that it takes to say, even if you don't say crazy things, to say like this protocol addresses all of these issues, to me is
Mhm.
just evidence that it's like, yeah, that hallmark is not there of
Right.
a practitioner that I would trust. The opposite is actually true. But I think it's important for people to hear this conversation from, I would say, two people. We're just not assholes about, about this field. And I think we do realize what we know and what we don't know, because what they're seeing is the really good marketing that is drawing
Mhm.
in all of those people per hour. Um,
Right.
and one of our clients yesterday, I was having a conversation with her. She has this amazing product. She's so integral, like the depths of integrity. I really enjoy working with her. But she was like, "Oh, I'm starting to understand that whoever has, the way she phrased it, whoever has like the cutest marketing message is who sells their
Hmm.
product." And I was like, "Yes." And that's so hard for like any good clinician or practitioner to understand, but that's the truth. And he has dominated
Yeah.
with
So
crazy things.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just so frustrating. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who have benefited from some of his protocols. And the interesting thing is, it's kind of just like absurd, is that he does talk about, he doesn't call it bio individuality, but he talks about how everybody has different, because he's really big into all these toxins and viruses you're exposed to and how it can make you sick. And everybody's kind of different based on what their needs are. Um, which hints at, that everybody obviously has different health concerns and they need different things because they're unique. But yet, all of his protocols kind of seem to be the same. And it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. And I will say, we're about to talk about the evidence. Like, if you start going, you go from a standard, American type diet or westernized diet, and you start drinking celery juice every morning and increasing the fruit you're eating and, drinking more water with lemon in it. These are things that
Mm-hmm.
I know he recommends. You're probably going to notice that you feel better. You're
Mm-hmm.
getting an influx of vitamins and minerals and polyphenols from plants that you weren't before, and all of those
Mm-hmm.
things have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory benefit. um so
Unless you're on the carnivore diet, and then,
yeah.
dude, I would pay such a large amount of money to get like Paul Saladino in the same room as Anthony William. Like, it's like a influencer pipe
The
dream.
energy would be intense.
It would be
That would
so
be a lot to handle.
intense.
I would watch it though. I definitely would watch it.
What would happen? Okay. Um, should we talk about the evidence?
Yeah.
I've seen him
So
actually referred to online as the celery juice guy. Who's the celery juice guy?
to be fair, I mean, to everyone else, he didn't invent celery juice. Like, celery juice has been around and a big part of juicing communities for many, many years. I mean,
Dude, so Hannah,
decades.
in the primal diet, this crazy raw food diet that I ate, that was how Augenis von der Planets, the originator of the primal diet, suggested you start every day, is with celery juice.
Interesting.
That's how I learned about celery juice. He was a little more liberal with his recommendation. Like, you could add other greens, but not many, and lemon juice to the celery juice. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
on an empty stomach, that's what he suggested. So I actually have wondered if that's where Medical Medium got that from. Augenis isn't as well known because, like, who wants to eat raw meat other
Right.
than my
So
friends?
that's a good thing to note, because there are little bits of his stuff, like I mentioned before, that are rooted in truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interwoven in this way that makes it hard to decipher what is legit and what isn't. And
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder, because we have, that those some evidence to suggest from those newspaper clippings from back in 2000 that he actually did study some natural medicine. And he did study like herbalism and was interested in that since 1985.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though he doesn't mention that now, that's like you can't find anything on that, because all of his expertise comes from the spirit of compassion, not from a book, of course, because that's ridiculous. But I wonder if it's these little tiny tidbits in his mind from that education, and then it's expanded into this thing that's like this strict protocol you have to follow, because that sells a lot better than something that's a little more lenient and practical and realistic. And that maybe is kind of the root of a lot of his information. So for the
Also,
evidence,
I just want to say in 1985, he was 16. I'm just
really?
putting that out
I
there.
never did the math.
If he's 50, and I'm not saying, I mean, people study all kinds of things. Like I was interested in nutrition at 16. I could tell you how much fat was in every food on earth because I wanted to be skinny. A banana actually has 1 gram of fat. It's a little known fact. Anyway, yeah, medical medium, Anthony William, in 1985, he was 16 years old. So maybe he
If
was
he's
interested.
55.
Yeah, if he's right.
We don't actually know what.
He could be 155 for all. That's how good this diet is.
That's interesting.
So just to point that out.
Okay. So we don't know how that could be just totally.
Yeah, I mean the dates are. It is, and to reiterate, it is incredibly hard to find information about him on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, harder than I knew it would be hard, but it was even harder than I expected to find anything. So for the evidence part, we were kind of focusing on 2 of his main points in this episode because there's just too much other stuff to cover. We had to like narrow it down. So that's celery juice and Epstein-Barr virus. Mm-hmm. So there is evidence that celery is beneficial for health, surprisingly.
Get out.
I think we might have mentioned this previously, but the celery cluster salts that he's talking about, and he says that that's why celery is so powerfully healing. There's not really evidence that that is a thing.
None.
So I can't tell you much about that. But celery is chock full, like other vegetables and fruits and plant foods, of polyphenols, and which are like plant chemicals that are powerfully healing because of the way they interact with things on a very small level in your body. So they can stop inflammation pathways from occurring. They can influence genetic expression. They can turn things on and off that will help you heal. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're great for you. I mean,
there's that article that Dr. Sarah Ballantyne wrote on celery juice. It's called like Fat or Fiction. Fat or Fabulous.
Fat or Fabulous.
It's a little foreshadowing for upcoming episodes. This article that she wrote. It's a fantastic breakdown of celery. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to even have to go here. It's like, yes, celery and like all fruits and vegetables are good for most people most of the time. Mm-hmm. I would love to know. Well, I do know. It's from the Spirit of Compassion. I was like, I would love to know why he focused on celery, or like where his evidence is coming from. It's coming from above.
Right.
But yeah, in the show notes, there's studies on celery and fertility, celery's ability to help certain detox pathways just because of the type of vegetable that it is.
And other vegetables in that family, like carrots and parsley, have the same impact on the way your detoxification happens in your body. And so it can be very helpful for that.
I will say that I just have this anecdotal story. So this is N=1. This one person was a student of one of our friends who is a nutrition teacher. And the student asked her, hey, do you think there are any drawbacks to drinking celery juice a la the medical medium's recommendations? And the woman asked because she had noticed that like her back had started to hurt. She started to have these symptoms around the time that she started to increase the amount of celery juice that she was drinking. And it turned out that her kidney markers had increased and she was having nothing that I think was like extreme, but she was having kidney issues. Went to the doctor and the doctor was like, have you changed anything? What are you doing? And she was like, oh, I started to drink, this juice. And her physician was like, just stop and see what happens. She stopped. The symptoms went away. She started. They came back. And she believes she tracked it to the amount of oxalates that are in celery. Now, I did just a little bit of digging to see. There's actually this really useful website. It's the Oxalosis and Hyperoxaluria Foundation. It's a foundation that they supply a tracker so you can see how much oxalate is in different foods. That is a whole ball of wax to talk about oxalates. But in raw vegetables is where you really have to pay attention to it, because heat and cooking breaks oxalates down so that they're like just not even an issue in the body. But some raw vegetables, you do have to be careful. Like, for instance, I lived in Hawaii. We would grow taro root. You can't eat that shit raw. We were raw foodists. Like, we wanted to try and eat as many things raw as possible. You cannot eat taro raw because the amount of oxalates is so high. It will hurt you.
Yeah.
So celery, though, has a moderate amount of oxalates according to this website. It's not, there's like high and very high levels above that. But she absolutely had symptoms, negative symptoms that resulted.
Yeah.
She truly believes it was related to that.
And maybe she was doing a lot of it and also eating other high oxalate foods. And so total, she was just getting a lot more than her body was capable of processing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just as with anything, like, people respond differently to different things. You kind of have to look at your diet as a whole, to see, I mean, I think above all, like, I'm totally down with what he recommends as far as try to stay close to whole foods, try to avoid ultra processing, eat more fruits and vegetables. But then also look at everything else. Like, he recommends super low protein. He recommends like very low fat, because he says fat, is stored in your liver, and then you get fatty liver, which is only very partly true and kind of taken out of context with other health. And so it's why do people like to follow strict stuff like this? I don't know. I will never understand why.
People love it. I mean, thankfully, though, this, I've actually thought to myself a lot over the years, like, thank God people are not really great at following it long term, or, they're not like, even though they might be disappointed in themselves that their willpower has like let them down, for most strict protocols, at the end of the day, it's such a godsend because they'll hurt you. It's like, and the people who really get messed up are the ones that I just have a completely iron will and push through no matter what. It's like that woman, that student who was having symptoms might have been like, oh, I'm just detoxing. It's like, thank goodness she had the wherewithal to like ask somebody who, could give her some tips. But
and I mean, in the Reddit threads of people who were in the community kind of reporting that they ended up stopping because they started to feel sick, or it wasn't agreeing with them, and they couldn't get the any kind of balanced support from him or other people who were kind of like the top dogs in following his protocol, because the advice is just like, well, you're just detoxing, you'll feel better, just like keep doing it. And, that's not the best thing to hear when you're getting sicker and sicker from this strict diet you're consuming. And we mentioned this before, but I think what I've read from that inner community is that people tend to get bullied out if they are, and which is apparently, allegedly encouraged by Anthony William, that if someone starts to question anything and say, hey, I'm not actually feeling good, or do you think this is a good idea? Or I read this other thing that said we shouldn't do this because this is bad. Like, instead of being open and open-minded with that, or respectful of that person's opinion or views or personal experience, they're just shut out and bullied out, and then they leave the community because of that negative response.
He's like saved their life by sending them away.
I guess so. So it's probably good for them, but
yeah, this is interesting too. I just want to point this out as a physiological mechanism of biotransformation, which is the actual word for detoxification. You have to, I don't care what God is whispering in your ear, you are made of meat and chemicals, and the way that the body gets rid of stuff, I mean, it's essentially like compounds that are toxic, is through protein and nutrients. So if anybody is recommending a low protein diet, and look, I did them for years, protocols. Do y'all remember the Ejuva herbs? They were actually really lovely. They would like press these like fresh pressed tablets of herbs. They would send them to you in this beautiful kit, and then you would juice apples and drink them till you just shit your brains out with like psyllium and all this. I did all of it.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Enemas, the whole thing. Dr. Schultz's like chronic illness detox. I mean, just you name it, I have probably swallowed it. The most critical piece that they were missing is the knowledge that biochemists have that the entire process of detoxification is based on protein. So if this person is talking about detoxification and there is a lack of protein in the diet, guess what? It ain't happening. That drives me cuckoo. So I just want to make sure that people know that. Like, I'm not saying you have to eat like a porterhouse every day, but like you do have to have some type of protein and much more. This is a whole other topic. Oh my God, I could get on a soapbox for ever. Sorry. Much more than what is recommended by the FDA for most people for physiological function in order to not just detoxify, but like have appropriate amounts of lean mass as we age and function.
So many things.
So many things. I mean, when I see low protein diet, I just want to shut my computer off and go outside.
Same. So, and on that same note, if you're thinking about detox, because that is something that Medical Medium seems to talk about a lot, the balance of the type of vegetables you're consuming is important too. Because as we mentioned, the apiaceous vegetables like celery can drive this one part of your detox pathways and enzymes. And you have many detox enzymes that detox all different drugs and toxicants and things you're
hormones
in contact with. And hormones, yeah. Things like estrogen. And you want it to be doing it the right way and not overdoing it or underdoing it. And eating a high amount of a isolated type of vegetable potentially could not be beneficial, even though vegetables are good for you, but you have to pay attention to that. And usually it's not a concern because most people don't eat like a mono diet, except when they're on these bizarre dietary protocols like what is recommended here. And so balance, guys, balance. But
when people are recommending variety, I'm like, yes. And there's a lot of good clinicians out there. And even I would say some popular clinicians that are recommending that. Like, find those people.
So do we want to talk a little bit about Epstein-Barr? Because this is pretty fascinating. Do we have any more? Celery. Yes.
Make your paw, people, and make a nice
celery's
soup
great
with some
for
celery in it.
Oh gosh. I also will say that like you don't have to juice celery to get health benefits from celery.
No, just put some peanut butter and raisins on it. Remember what your mama taught you. That's it.
So Epstein-Barr, the most shocking thing I found about Epstein-Barr that I honestly was like, oh, wow, is that it affects over 90% of the world's population. And some people say 98%. 98% of everybody in the whole world has Epstein-Barr virus.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it, to think about?
Isn't that mind-boggling?
Yeah.
And that's a huge, that's technically, not technically, but that's like everybody.
Statistically, it's pretty close to 100.
Yeah. And it obviously doesn't make everybody sick because then where would we be? And so I think a lot of those infections occur in childhood and that virus affects your immune system.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating. I even came across one thing, which I need to stick in the show notes, that it could potentially have some benefit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
In childhood, the way it modulates your immune system. So
for sure,
my brain is going like, from an evolutionary standpoint, like was this beneficial to us in some way? I have to think that. I mean, there's so many weird things like this where it seems like it's a bad thing, but it might actually be helping us. And I can't say that. I mean, I'm just like speculating, but I think it's really cool to think about that. And we also do know that it can kind of maybe not be great for you. Obviously, like Epstein-Barr virus can make you really sick.
Yeah.
Mononucleosis or mono is like the main thing people associate with it. And that's like when it's active. I think we mentioned that in the first episode. You can have silent Epstein-Barr. I do. I never knew I had it until a doctor just like did a test just to check. But I never had mono. I've never been sick from it, but I obviously caught it from somebody and it's just kind of dormant. And it's one of those things that kind of sticks with you for your whole life. Yeah. It can become reactivated and you can have symptoms from it and then it'll go away. So, I think it's interesting that he drives home this like big message about Epstein-Barr and how dangerous it is for you. And it's like, well, everybody's has it. So really that's helpful for his marketing because if someone finds out they have Epstein-Barr,
that's the explanation.
He's the expert on it, guys. I
think there sarcastic. I didn't pull up these studies. I'm just thinking about this right in this moment, but I think there is some shown connection between a more active Epstein-Barr antibody profile. So somebody gets tested and they see like, oh, this virus is active, and like chronic fatigue syndrome. But this is really important. And I think this is just a cool biology piece that we should pull out that has nothing to do with our podcast, but it's just really interesting when you say, like this virus could even be somewhat beneficial to the immune system. I think for a lot of people, that's probably like their brain explodes. Like they maybe have never thought like that a virus could be beneficial. But the reality, like you're saying, is evolutionarily, we grew up, like we evolved with these different elements. Viruses, bacteria, parasites, fungus. I mean, all of these different elements. I don't know. There's just so many classifications of these things that we were exposed to that when we say beneficial, I mean, the thing that I think is like evolution is always pushing toward the expression of us that creates the most survivable progeny. It only needs us to live that long to like have the kid that the kid is going to live, and then it does, whatever, it's done with us. That's kind of where evolution ends. And so from that perspective, it's like all kinds of, genetic expressions. People talk about these SNPs that, are you MTHFR positive or this or that? It's like everything that sticks around is sticking around, and we are kind of working with it as we evolve because there was some benefit. If not, either we would be dead and gone as a species or it would be dead and gone as a species. Like there's some push and pull back and forth. So to put things in a bucket of like good or bad, that is not how biology works or how science works. And it is certainly not how nutrition works. It is how capitalism and marketing work and how this guy is making so much money. So I just want to point that out, that it's like, yes, sometimes a virus can be in many ways beneficial, or a genetic SNP that maybe you've been told MTHFR is so bad. It's like, well, there is a benefit to that in one aspect. In another aspect, no. But if we think about it in the way that it actually is versus in how marketing says it is, then we understand that viewpoint better.
Yes. Yes. Well said. Love it.
We're turning that into a social media snippet. I can feel it.
Yes. So something that he talks about a lot is eggs. And there's this huge fear around eggs and Epstein-Barr and I hear this regurgitated on social media. Eggs feed viruses, and eggs are like this horrible food, and they feed cancer cells and all of these things. None of that, as far as I know, is rooted in any kind of evidence. The one thing I came across that I thought was cool is that there is possibly a link between having Epstein-Barr virus, and again, maybe 98% of people have Epstein-Barr virus, and egg allergy. So like being actually allergic, IgE allergy to eggs.
Allergy, yeah.
And that is because of the way the virus affects the immune system. and
Yeah.
how it would respond to the egg protein. And
Hmm.
I think that that is not what he is referring to, like
No.
at all. But again, maybe he read that and then twisted it into this other thing that is more marketable and can apply to anybody, to make money off of it. So,
Hmm.
uh,
It turns into
obviously
like a
it's
game of
not,
telephone.
yeah. And like, it's like, that's not like a law because if 98% of people have Epstein-Barr, everybody would be allergic to eggs and couldn't eat eggs. And that's
Yeah,
obviously
it's not.
not the
It's just
case. So
yeah.
it's just, a little interesting tidbit. The other thing about Epstein-Barr that is talked about by the medical medium, Anthony William, is that it causes cancer,
Hmm.
all types of cancer. And
And then he like makes like a nursery rhyme about it. I think we played that in the last episode.
yeah, oh God. Okay, so my interestingly, and I believe we mentioned this before, is that the man, Epstein, what's his
Tony.
first name? Tony
Tony
Epstein.
Epstein. He just died this year. I don't
Yeah.
even know where he's
This,
from. I'm just guessing from someplace up north because I want to do that accent so bad.
the scientist who technically discovered Epstein-Barr, isolated it, I guess,
Hmm.
in 1964, he realized that there were virus particles in a cancer cell
Hmm.
and later figured out that those virus particles were Epstein-Barr virus. And then
Hmm.
that created the hypothesis that could this be linked to cancer or causing cancer? And so that
Hmm.
was in 1964. I mean, now we're in 2024 and lots of science, people have studied this. And yes, Epstein-Barr virus has been implicated in a certain small amount, like subset of cancers, but not all cancer.
There's a good quote around this, Hannah. Do you want me to just read this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So this is from a Nature, just a casual Nature article that we can link to in the show notes about Tony Epstein because he did just die this year. So I'm guessing they're highlighting his work. And so they write it took decades of work by Epstein's lab and many others before Epstein Barr virus was unequivocally recognized as the first human tumor virus. The virus proved to be widespread in all populations, and Burkitt lymphoma's paradoxical link to Africa, this was described earlier in the article, was later explained. Malarial infection promotes Epstein Barr virus's causative role in this type of tumor in Burkitt lymphoma, named after one of the scientists that Tony Epstein worked with. So they went on to show that Epstein Barr virus causes infectious mononucleosis, glandular fever, like Hannah, you mentioned before. And the virus is now causally linked. And that is important, right? I mean, that's hard to
Mhm.
prove causation versus just a connection. It's causally linked to at least 6 types of human tumor, together accounting for around 200,000 new cancer cases worldwide each year. It's important to say, though, that is in no way even close to what medical medium is claiming, which is that Epstein Barr virus is like the reason
Mhm.
for cancer. And this is the thing. There's like a seed of truth in what he
Mhm.
says. And so it's like, oh, well, then it's true. And it's like, no, no, no. All of the murk around it is just hype.
Right.
It's just that seed that is the actual truth. So that's a neat little write up about him we can link.
Yeah, so I mean, I hope this is helpful for people who, have been influenced by medical medium to see that like some of this stuff is rooted in truth, but like you don't have to do it this way. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we're going into the takeaway
That's
now, but
totally, yeah, that's great. That's great.
please do not trust this man with your health.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
everything he's telling you, I mean, it's the common stuff, the common sense stuff is great, but everything else is just like, don't trust this person who is literally making stuff up. And we highlighted this before, but if you read his blog and his rationale behind the way he does things and his recommendations, he actually fabricates
Mm-hmm.
physiology, like processes in the body. He
Mm-hmm.
just he just makes it up, and then he
Mm-hmm.
claims that no one
Even
else knows
anatomy,
this.
saying that the brain is
Is made of sugar,
yeah.
a jellyfish-like organ made of sugar. That
Dude,
is
it's like
not
some Willy Wonka
true.
shit. God, man. Yeah, and this point too, I think is important is that this overlap,
Hmm.
this like very primary overlap between the characteristics of cult leaders and what we see with medical medium. I mean, this is
Hmm.
the quote here. They all have or had an overabundant belief that they were special, that they and they alone had the answers to problems, and that they had to be revered. They demanded perfect loyalty from followers, which we've seen. They
Hmm.
overvalued themselves and devalued those around them. They were intolerant of criticism. And above all, they did not like being questioned or challenged.
That
God.
is to the T the things that we're seeing from the research we've done into this guy. And it's kind of bizarre that that fits him so well, to be perfectly
Mm.
honest.
I mean, I just keep thinking, I hope this isn't our last episode once we publish it because I just like any day expect a letter from a lawyer.
Hmm.
And if they start to come after us, we'll let you know, I
Yeah. I'll
guess.
let you
But
know.
it does seem like, I mean, there's an article also that will be linked in the show notes. Dr. Adrian Chavez wrote for, was it like lux.com or lose.com?
Yeah,
There's
and I think
a
it's on his own blog too. It's
about
good.
gurus, and he got a letter from Anthony William, well, from his team.
His legal team. Yeah.
Do you think like his
Simply for
lawyers show up every morning? I just am thinking about them in their like suits or whatever, and instead of like coffee, they're just all taking like shots of celery juice.
you gotta wonder, like, for people who are working for him in that capacity, if they are all in with what he's saying, or if they're like, whatever, as long as I get paid, you know. But this article that y'all can read, the first thing is like identifying a vulnerable population. Like keys to success for a wellness guru of this caliber is the
Mm-hmm.
is the vulnerable population. And Anthony William, his niche is chronic illness. That's what
Mm-hmm.
he is like targeting in with his audience. And that, I mean, if you have chronic illness and you have not had a solution provided to you or an explanation or even just quality of care, someone to
Mm-hmm.
listen to you, I can imagine how easy it would be to see this medical medium community as this incredible thing because it's promising you healing and telling you your body can heal, you just do this and your body can heal. That's
Yeah.
not incorrect, but the way he goes about it is very insidious and not in anyone's best interest. As
Not
far that's
mindful, not
not
doer.
mindful, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a topic, a whole, set of ideas that Hannah and I have talked about for so long. Like, just how can it be real that this person has so much influence over so many people?
Hmm.
It is wild to me. Actually, looking on his Instagram, I really did my best to suspend judgment just to see how many of my friends follow him.
Hmm.
Some people who are like incredibly educated. And I think, like, to me, part of this too speaks to the power of marketing.
Hmm.
Just because something is marketed well, it does not mean anything other than the marketing is really good. I mean, that's impressive on its own. It's like
Yeah.
I market and write sales pages and landing pages every day with the mission to improve the field that I'm in. Not everyone has that mission. It's a
Right.
lot different, I think, if you're selling a widget. I mean, even that, it'd be nice to have a quality of whatever you buy. But it's like in the world of healthcare, that quality directly corresponds to your life.
Right.
And I don't think that he is considering that. I think he's considering the bottom line.
Hmm.
A triple bottom line, wonderful. increased quality of life, increased money. We can totally have those things together, but one without the other. I mean, I think I said this in the last episode. It should be against the law.
Yeah, I agree. Oh man, what a mess.
Anything
You
else
know,
that we should say about him?
I think that's, I mean, I don't think any of this information would sway someone who is really in the community and like has is benefiting from these protocols in the moment
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, if you've been dealing with chronic illness for so long and it's affecting your life so much and it's just like stealing your life from you essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start to feel better, like
Mm-hmm.
you are gonna believe that is right. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why maybe it's so easy for people to become ostracized when they start to question inside that community
Yeah.
because you develop this emotional tie to it
Mm-hmm.
because it's personal for you.
Yeah.
And so I really don't want to offend anyone or, make you think less of your choices. If these protocols have helped you heal, that's
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Yeah.
But please be open-minded to the fact that it is possible that at some point you might start to feel bad again. And it
Mm-hmm.
could be because of, you're not meeting all of your requirements for nutrition because this is a very strict, many of them are very strict. It
Mm-hmm.
could be because of fear.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of fear inside of this medical medium community, it seems like, and the way that he translates information to people is
Mm-hmm.
very fear-based, and
Mm-hmm.
that can have a profound effect on your health and your health outcomes. I mean, your
Mm-hmm.
mind is really powerful, and so if you're entering, your day being afraid of things, being afraid
Yes.
of toxins in the air, being afraid of someone coughing near you because the virus particles might get to you, being afraid because you didn't eat organic today, being afraid because you ate out and there was a bunch of fat in the food, like oil or something, and your liver is going to be clogged, it sounds ridiculous. Like
But
I know,
no,
but
I
I
know
also know
people,
from working with people that this is something that
they
it
go
gets in
there.
you. It gets really
Yeah.
deep in you, the fear, and that can affect your health. I mean, your
Everything.
mental health, but your body health can affect
Mm-hmm.
everything. So just be like, give yourself grace and kindness and like know that some of the stuff he says is rooted in truth. And that's probably why you are feeling better. But the
Mm-hmm.
other stuff is just total BS. I mean, it's
Totally.
like, it makes me laugh because it's so absurd. But again, like,
Mm-hmm.
we have, a background in science.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone else has a background in science, they might be able to see those red flags too. But if
Yeah,
you
it's
don't know, he's
hard.
just totally bullshitting like the physiology of, B12 or iron or like, I mean, there's so many things in his
Metabolism.
blog we didn't
Yeah.
cover that are just totally made up.
Yeah.
Makes it
It's
up.
just,
It's bizarre. But,
dude, Hannah, if science 100, 200 years from now uncovers that everything he said is right.
okay, I'm the first to admit I was wrong. Like I will be like, okay, sorry, I was wrong about that. I
I don't
am
know. I think that
okay.
might be my limit. I'll be like, I'm sticking with it. That'll be where I
But I
separate
still
from
don't like his attitude, okay? I still think he's a jerk. And
I
I'm
know
just gonna
that's,
say that. Like the way he
yeah.
interacts with others in the text message records, in the podcast, the Plotter series, where
Yeah.
he's attacking this woman for just trying to like question him and his
Mm-hmm.
authority and what he did to her friend, that's wrong.
He's a
Like,
skis.
what
Yeah,
a,
absolutely.
yeah.
It's wrong.
So
Mm-hmm.
even if it turns out that he is correct and he's way ahead of modern science and we were all wrong, he's still not a kind person. And I'm not
No.
okay with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, he's a dick. You're so nice. He's a jerk. Okay, you all send us your questions. I'm totally into the questions people have about episodes that they send to us. We'll address some of them on air.
Yes.
And I think our next episode is on soy.
Soy.
That's not contentious. That'll be totally fine. I've actually been kicked out of forums for soy, not blocked, but kicked out of forums. So
another one that's really personal for people.
Super personal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Hannah, I'll see you then.
All right. Bye.
Bye.